Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Mr. Charles Nabholz as he joins us on stage to accept his award. Do a photo right quick. Do a photo.
Well, I'm a bit overwhelmed, to say the least. I want to thank Mitch Bettis for selecting me for this honor, for this leadership award. I really appreciate being involved and being included in the list of former leaders of this leadership, legacy of leadership. I've always admired the success and leadership of the other honorees. Wallace Fowler was a great leader, great businessman. Johnny L. Hunt, German Tate, Mac McLarty, and Tommy May, and Joe T. Ford were people that they were role models for me, and I never dreamed that I'd be included in a list with them. So thank you again, Mitch, for selecting me. I want to thank the people who might have supported me in this nomination, and I want to introduce my family. I can't see them, but I know they're there. Charlotte Nabholz and Greg Nabholz, who escorted me to the stairs, and Gwen Azard and her husband Steve from Greenville, Mississippi, and my other two daughters, Sarah Nabholz and Camilla Williamson from Fayetteville. Thank you all for always being here to support me. Also at my table is Dr. Bo Thomas, a longtime friend of mine who's come over from Memphis to celebrate this occasion. So thank you, Bo, for being here. I grew up on a farm, as you saw, and youngest of 12 children. And a lot of people said, well, you must have been the baby of the family. And I said, well, our family was structured very, very like all the farm families were back then. And my mom and dad were pretty much divided up the chores, and Dad would line out the work, and my mom would line out the work in the house. And when they were gone, my dad it was a strict rule that the oldest person in the house was the one that would take over the responsibility. So if there was a special chore that came up during the day, the oldest person on the house would kind of tap the next oldest and say, you go do this, and I think y'all see where this is going. By the time it got down to me, I didn't have anybody to pass it on to, so I always begged to differ when anybody said you must have been a spoiled child, so I definitely was not a spoiled child. In my mind, I wasn't. But I did learn a lot from my family. We all learned a lot about teamwork. We learned a lot about resilience. We had to work together on the farm, and so I credit my brothers and sisters for giving me a good role model to live my life after. And so I learned a lot of lessons in teamwork and responsibility. I witnessed how the collective efforts of all of us working together could transform the tough challenges of farm life into a life of dignity and pride. These experiences instilled in me a respect for the power of collaboration and teamwork. Many of the core values instilled in the Nabholz companies today were the values of family that our family experienced on the farm. I was around my dad when he would make a handshake deal with the other farmers and our neighbors while working together as a team during the critical harvest times, such as haymaking and oat thrashing. These farmers had a deep sense of commitment as they planned their crops each year, never knowing whether the crops were going to bear any fruit or not. The times were hard back then, but all farmers were in kind of the same boat. You had either too much It was either too cold or too hot or too wet or too dry. And that was the way life was on the farm. But I observed a lot of different leadership styles as our family interacted with our neighbors, as well as in school and in my church. My dad was a quiet type, and he sort of led by example. And he would get up early in the morning and wake us up, and the house wasn't very big, so he didn't have to talk very loud, but he'd get up and say, shake a leg, it's time to get up. I think I can hear my family giggling over there because I think I carried on some of that when I was raising our children. So we would do our chores and then follow him out to the cotton fields or cornfields. One of my neighbors, kind of a short and dictatorial type person, and he would shout at his children, or he'd shout at the cows, or whoever was around him, and use colorful language, which was not permitted for us to use at home, but we were exposed to it. And another neighbor was a World War I veteran. He was shell-shocked, and he couldn't speak hardly at all, but he could motion with his hands, and he could give directions, and he was a good leader, but in his own way, he was able to show leadership skills. And then one of our other neighbors had one arm missing, and he could contribute just as much to the joint effort of harvesting our crops than anyone else could. So he was not held back, and he also led by example. It was fun to listen to the farmers when we gather around at a break time or after lunch or late in the evening and sit under a shade tree and have a bragging log or whatever you want to call it, and listen to them tell stories. But despite their various leadership styles and physical handicaps, the farmers worked together with understanding and compassion. So looking back at this way of life inspired me along the way to incorporate those farm values into my business and professional life. Now, joining Nabholz Construction Company after graduating from high school in 1954 opened my eyes to an even broader spectrum of leadership. I was fortunate to observe remarkable leaders, starting with my brother Bob Nabholz, who founded the company. And all my other brothers were excellent leaders as well, and I learned a lot from them. There were many other men and women at Nabholz Construction Company that I admired who were good role models for me. It's their examples that helped shape my understanding of what true leadership is. I believe that whatever leadership skills I have were shaped from the many observations and lessons I have gathered throughout my life journey. I think everyone probably had heroes during their life. As a kid, occasionally, my dad, if he had enough cash around the house, he would take my brother and I to the movie on Saturday night. We'd go to downtown Conway and go to the Grand Theater and watch some Western movies. And my heroes back then were Roy Rogers and Gene Autry. And I always wanted to be like them. And until I got bucked off of my horse a couple of times and I realized I couldn't sing very well or play the guitar, I kind of gave up on that idea. So they were kind of my heroes. I wanted to kind of live like a life of until I went through that experience. But my real life heroes, though, were my brothers. At various times during my life, I would try to imitate them. I would also try to imitate some of the leaders in the community who I admired. But as much as I wanted to be like someone else, those efforts never worked out. However, there was a common trait in these relationships. My brothers and all my different role models kind of made me feel like I mattered to them. So I came to understand that you don't lead by trying to imitate somebody else. You lead by first making others feel like they matter. And even though I was the youngest person in the house, my family made me feel like I mattered. So yes, when it's all said and done, maybe I have to take back what I said about being a spoiled child, but not being a spoiled child. I think I was a spoiled child, considering all that I experienced during my lifetime. But in pursuit of my leadership, I tried to answer to two guiding forces, my God and myself. It is my faith and moral compass that have moved me forward over the years. Always remind me to lead with integrity and compassion. As I accept this honor, I do so not just on behalf of myself, but for all those who have inspired me along the way. So thank you for this incredible honor, and let's continue to inspire one another to lead with integrity, compassion, and purpose. Thank you all very much.